Welcome, patrons! Let's skip the introductions this time. We've talked about the DA calendar, and now let's put the knowledge to use. Spoilers are mild and only say about as much as any promotional materials for the games or books would say. So, presented to you, in the fastest way possible, a brief, complete history of Thedas. Negative 7,600 Ancient. Earliest recorded date of Thedas, and the day the Elven Empire Arlathan was founded. Negative 4,600 Ancient. Ancient Elven records first mention dwarves. Negative 3,100 Ancient. Humanity came to Thedas, but from where? No idea. Negative 2,850 Ancient. The once immortal elves start to age. They begin to panic and withdraw from other societies. Negative 2,800 Ancient. The old gods begin to contact a human tribe called the Neramenians and teach them magic. Negative 1,815 Ancient. A tribe of humans called the Alamari, living in soon-to-be Ferelden, split into two groups. The other group is called the Avar. Negative 1,700 Ancient. The Neramenians split into four kingdoms: Tevinter, Neramenia, Barandur, and Qunari. Negative 1,415 Ancient. Another group of humans break off from the Alamari, the Chastened, and they settle the Qunari wilds. Negative 1,207 Ancient. Neramenian and Tevinter kingdoms become one again, and now they're just Tevinter. Negative 1,195 Ancient. Tevinter unites with Qunari again, and they're still just Tevinter. Negative 981 Ancient. War between Arlathan elves and Tevinter begins. Negative 975 Ancient. Tevinter wins the war and sinks Arlathan into the ground, enslaving the remaining elves. Negative 715 Ancient. Tevinter tries to enslave the Alamari. Tevinter struggles to do so, but does hold the Ferelden lands for some time. Negative 695 Ancient. Western Tevinter splits from regular Tevinter, becoming the Anderf elves. Negative 620 Ancient. Tevinter establishes a city called Amerius, a settlement for slaves to mine stone. Negative 535 Ancient. The Anderfels are retaken by Tevinter, now just one big Tevinter. Negative 410 Ancient. The Kossith first believed to land in Thedas. Okay, so it's Qunari, but the name of the Qunari is for people living under the Qun. Kossith is actually for the race of the Horned People. Okay. Negative 395 Ancient. A group of Tevinter magisters violently enter the Fade and go into the Golden City, turning it black, and they are made into the first Darkspawn. The first Blight also begins. Negative 380 Ancient. Dwarven tigers begin to fall to the Darkspawn. Negative 305 Ancient. The Order of the Grey Wardens are founded. Negative 203 Ancient. The first Blight ends and Andraste is born. Negative 195 Ancient. The remaining Darkspawn are forced into the Deep Roads, screwing over the dwarves. Negative 186 Ancient. Andraste preaches for a new god, the Maker. Negative 180 Ancient. Andraste's husband, Mafrath, begins to push the Imperium out of Ferelden and incites many slave uprisings. Negative 171 Ancient. Shartan, an escaped elven slave, fights alongside Mafrath and wins a battle against Tevinter. Shartan is made a disciple of Andraste. Negative 170 Ancient. Andraste is betrayed by her husband Mafrath and is burned to death by the Imperium. Negative 165 Ancient. Andraste's army disperses. Mafrath rules southern Thedas and divides the rest between his three sons. The elves are given their own homeland, the Dales, and many elves begin the long walk to their new home. Negative 160 Ancient. Tevinter ditches the old gods and converts to the Maker. Negative 100 Ancient. The First Inquisition is founded. Negative 44 Ancient. The Kingdom of Vervain is founded. Negative 30 Ancient. The city-state of Antiva becomes a nation. Negative 25 Ancient. Marius falls to a slave uprising and becomes Kirkwall. Negative 15 Ancient. Two Dwarven tigers remain, Kalsharok and Orzammar. To protect itself, Orzammar seals itself from the deep roads, dooming Kalsharok to the Darkspawn. Negative 3 Ancient. Cordelius Draken is crowned Emperor of the newly formed Orlais. He creates the Chantry, which is based around the teachings of Andraste and worship of the Maker. 1-1 Divine. The first leader of the Chantry, Divine Justini I, is named. 1-5 Divine. The second Blight begins. Tevinter abandons Anderfels to protect itself. 120 Divine. The Chantry and Inquisition sign the Navaran Accord. Senior members of the Inquisition become the Seekers of Truth. The Circle of Magi is created, as is the Templars. 125 Divine. The Elves in the Dale completely ignore Orlais's cry for help against the Darkspawn. 150 Divine. A man named Hafter unites the Chastened and Avar against the Darkspawn, and he becomes the first Terran of Ferelden. 165 Divine. The Anderfels gain its independence. 195 Divine. The second Blight ends. 2-5 Glory. Border skirmishes between Orlais and the Dales begin. 210 Glory. Divine Renata I calls for an exalted march against the Dales. Hafter's grandson, Cadman, declares himself king and a civil war breaks out in Ferelden. 220 Glory. The Dales fall. Elves are given spaces in other cities called alienages to live in. Many elves actually reject this and become nomads, making the first Dalish. 310 towers, the third blight begins. 365 towers. Navarra breaks from Orlais and becomes independent. 387 towers. Tevinter gets into an argument about the Chant of Light with the Chantry, and they break away and make their own. 440 black. The Chantry calls 4 different Exalted marches to convert Tevinter back into the original Chantry. All fail. 480 black. Orlais invades Ferelden. 510 Exalted. The last Exalted march in the Tevinter Imperium ends. 512 Exalted. The 4th blight begins. 525 Exalted. Griffins die en masse during the blight and are soon extinct. 630 steel. Qunari land in Parvalon and completely conquer it. 632 steel. Qunari arrive in Saharon in northern Ravane, and the First Qunari War begins. 642 steel. Much of the Imperium, Ravane, and Antiva are taken over by Qunari. 725 storm. The first Exalted march on the Qunari are called, freeing Saharon and Ravane. 752 storm. Another Exalted march on the Qunari is called, and fails. Most of Antiva is captured by the Qunari. 755 storm. A final Exalted march on the Qunari is called. 760 storm. Kirkwall is liberated from the Qunari by an Orlesian chevalier, and is now controlled by Orlais. 784 storm. The Exalted march in the Qunari ends with a Lomaran Accord, and signed by all except for Tevinter. 85 blessed. Kirkwall gains its independence from Orlais. 824 blessed. Orlais invades Ferelden again. 844 blessed. Orlais claims Ferelden, but is still attacked by small pockets of resistance fighters led by Moria Theron. 855 blessed. The Qunari retakes Saharan. 896 blessed. Moria is assassinated by traitors in her ranks. Her son Merrick escapes. 9-0 dragon. Ferelden rebels, led by Merrick Theron, defeat Orlais and win back Ferelden. 912 dragon. Cal Shirok is rediscovered, and it turns out they survived. 920 dragon. Empress Helene assumes the throne of Orlais. 925 dragon. King Merrick is lost at sea and presumed dead. His son Kaelin assumes the throne. 930 dragon. The 5th blight begins. 931 dragon. The 5th blight ends, thanks to the hero Ferelden, making it the shortest blight in history by a very wide margin. A Qunari warship is wrecked near Kirkwall, stranding one of the Qunari's leaders and many soldiers there. 934 dragon. Divine Justinia V is named. Meanwhile, Qunari are provoked into rising up and attacking Kirkwall. Hawk drives them out and becomes the city's first champion. And finally, 940 dragon. Civil war in Orlais begins, while the war between mages and Templars starts in full. Divine Justinia calls for a peaceful conclave between the leaders of the mages and Templars. And that, honored patrons, is the best I can do to summarize the Thedas history. Do you still have lingering questions or proof that I'm wrong? Comments about your own fan theories? Feel free to tweet me at @Gilderthalon on Twitter or send a PM to user Galenon on Reddit. Dareth Shiral.